Hello, and welcome to This Week in Privacy. My name's Alexis Katsifidis, and here are your regulatory highlights for this week. After much anticipation, the European Data Protection Board released its finalized version of its recommendation on supplementary measures following Schrems II. The EDPB outlined the following key revisions to the recommendations: the emphasis on the importance of examining the practices of third country public authorities in the exporter's legal assessment to determine whether the legislation and/or practices of the third country impinge on the effectiveness of the chosen transfer tool under Article 46 of the GDPR. The possibility that the exporter considers in its assessment the practical experience of the importer, among other elements and with certain caveats, and the clarification that the legislation of the third country of destination allowing its authorities to access the data transferred, even without the importer's intervention, may also impinge on the effectiveness of the transfer tool. The EDPB added that, in relation to the new SCCs, the recommendations may be used to check the local laws and practices affecting compliance with the SCCs and the possible need to implement supplementary measures. OneTrust Data Guidance, in collaboration with Sidley Austin, will be hosting a cross-industry panel to provide reactions and analysis to the finalized recommendations on Wednesday the 23rd of June. You can register for the webinar by visiting www.dataguidance.com. In Ontario, the government has released a white paper calling for input and outlining proposals to address gaps in the province's legislative privacy framework. The white paper details that although attempts to modernize privacy laws are welcomed at the federal level, with Bill C-11 being introduced, it notes that it hopes to address gaps, building upon feedback received during its 2020 Privacy Reform consultation, as well as advice from the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario and privacy experts. Further to this, the white paper puts forward proposals with themes including establishing a right-based approach to privacy, the safe use of automated decision-making, enhanced consent and lawful uses of personal data, the protection of children and youth in the privacy regime, a fair, proportionate and supportive regulatory regime, and support for Ontario innovators. Comments may be submitted until the 2nd of August. The European Data Protection Board and the European Data Protection Supervisor released a joint opinion on the European Commission's proposal for an AI regulation. The EDPB and the EDPS welcomed the aim of addressing the use of AI systems within the EU, but also expressed concern regarding the exclusion of international law enforcement cooperation from the scope of the proposal. The EDPB and EDPS also stressed the need to explicitly clarify that existing EU data protection legislation applies to any processing of personal data falling under the scope of the draft AI regulation. As a result, the designation of DPAs as the national supervisory authorities would ensure a harmonized regulatory approach and contribute to the consistent interpretation of data processing provisions across the EU. That's all for this week in privacy. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next week.